take a look at incremental analysis. We're choosing between 2 or 3 different alternatives. We're going to look at what changes, and that's how we're going to make our decision. Sometimes it's called differential analysis. We're going to look at what's different between the various choices and make our decision based on that. So first, let's get some vocabulary out of the way. Relevant cost means stuff that can change, stuff that is different between the two alternatives. Opportunity cost means what we might be giving up. If we choose to make basketballs in one area of the factory, we're giving up the opportunity to make, say, ping pong balls in the same area. The sunk cost is money that's already been spent. It isn't relevant to the decision. It's already been spent. There's nothing we can do about it. So every textbook has a little different setup, but it's usually the various alternatives in the columns, the revenues and the costs down the left-hand side, and then this final column is the incremental analysis, the differential analysis. What's changed? What's different between the two? And what always confuses the heck out of me is whether we're talking about positive or negative numbers. So let me give you an example of a problem that I made up years ago and tell you how I look at these pluses and minuses. So there's a bunch of common types of problems that come up in incremental analysis. There's a special price order. There's the discontinue a business. There's sell or process further. This one is a make or buy analysis. Blaze Industries manufactures wet-dry vacuums, and it makes 100,000 vacuums every year. Traditionally, it's made its own filters, but now a supplier says we can sell you your filters for $10 each. So we have to do the make or buy decision. The variable costs are $5 per filter. Fixed overhead are $450,000 a year. If we bought those filters, those fixed overhead costs would disappear. So that's something that would change. All right, so here's the 3 columns. Here's the information down the side. Let's take a look at it. If we continue to make these filters, we'll have to spend $5 per filter on variable cost. $5 per filter times 100,000 filters gives us $500,000. Our fixed costs are $450,000. If we continue to make them, we don't have to buy them. So these are all costs. They're all positive signs here. So we total this up. Our total costs right now are $950,000. If we buy the filters, obviously we won't have any variable costs because we won't be making them anymore. It tells us in the facts that the fixed overhead costs of $450,000 go away, so we won't have those costs. The only cost we'll have is $1 million. So would you rather spend $950,000 or $1 million? Well, obviously we're going to continue to make. So let's take a look at this last column because this is where I always get confused. Let's subtract from left to right. 500,000 minus 0 is $500,000. 450,000 minus 0 is $450,000. 0 minus $1 million is a negative $1 million. So you total up these and you find out that we're $50,000 to the bad. In other words, our costs would be $50,000 higher if we were to buy these parts instead of make them. All right, let's make this thing mildly more interesting. Let's say that if we stop making our own filters and we buy them from the outside, that'll free up some factory space. And we can use that factory space to make accessories for our vacuum cleaners that'll add $200,000 to contribution margin. So, what does that look like? Well, if we keep making them, we're still going to have our variable cost of $5 per filter. $5 times 100,000 filters is 500,000. We're still going to have our fixed cost of 450,000. We won't have to buy them from the outside, but we'll miss out on this opportunity here for additional contribution margin. So our total costs under make stay the same, but things look a little bit better under the buy column. We don't have to pay the variable costs. We don't have our own fixed costs. We'll pay out that $1 million, but we'll have additional contribution margin of $200,000. Since all these guys were positive numbers, these were costs. Since this is dollars in, it's revenue, it's the opposite. I made it a negative number. So when we total this column, it's $800,000. So would you rather spend $950,000 or $800,000? Well, you'd rather spend $800,000. You're $150,000 to the good, which makes sense because we're $50,000 to the bad before, and now we've added $200,000 to the good. So it makes sense that buying would be a lot more appealing. And the way that I think about it is I subtract from left to right. 500,000 minus 0 is 500,000. 450,000 minus 0 is $450,000. 0 minus $1,000,000 is minus $1,000,000. 0 minus a negative 200,000 is a plus 200,000. You total up this column and you get that $150,000. So when we're doing incremental analysis, when we're choosing between various courses of actions, we're going to look at what changes, what's different between the courses, and that's going to show up in this third column. And don't be concerned if you get confused about subtracting from left to right or right to left and positive or negative numbers. The important thing is to get the concept that when we're making business decisions, it's what changes that counts, and sunk costs have already been spent, so there's no way to change those. They aren't relevant to the business decision we have to make today. Hope that helps.